One of the things that you will absolutely 100% see is how do we manage security? You know, if you don't have a AUP, it stands for what? If you don't have an acceptable use policy and somebody's out surfing porn on your network or doing something that they shouldn't be doing, then could you fire them? Probably not. You know, if you don't have a policy saying that they shouldn't be doing it while they're on your network, then the argument could be made that, hey, you know what, I didn't know any better, right, Hillary, or whoever? So you didn't know any better. This particular case here, I would tell you that on here, if you take a look at this, each one of these will be on your exam. Each one of these will be on your exam. So even if you don't know any better about these right here, let's try to enumerate them really quickly. So specifically here on page, we'll start on page 90, 91. They talk a little bit about the acceptable use policy. If you're not familiar with that, you can read about it here in your book. But they go into all sorts of crazy policies here. You can have regulatory policies like HIPAA, Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Sarbanes-Oxley, or you may have heard of the payment card industry, where they have the data security standards now. And that's why we've moved away from swipe to now we insert the chip in there. Whether or not you agree with that, that's the way the PCI compliance is moving. There's advisory, you can see here on page 90, and then the informative ones that are out there. But the difference between some of the things here on the left-hand side, policy, standards, baselines, guidelines, and procedures, are enumerated here. Standards refer to mandatory activities, actions, or rules. They give a policy, its support and reinforcement in direction. So you're probably very familiar with standards if you've used NIST before, because what's it stand for? Yeah, National Institute of Standards and Technology. So that's really something that you're probably more familiar with. In this particular case, baseline is a point in time that is used as a comparison for future changes. I know that usually if you're using virtual machines or any type of software or systems, you'll go ahead and try to create a baseline, like a reference point that you can always come back to. Same thing whenever you're doing documentation. It's something that you know works, it's been proven, and you can always come back to it at a later time. And she gives some pretty funny examples about, a diet in this particular case on page 40 or 92 right here. Some of the guidelines here, recommended actions. So that's the difference right there. The guidelines are recommended actions. Procedures, this is the one that always shows up on the exam, more so than any of these other ones, is a step-by-step task that should be performed to achieve a certain goal. So keep that in mind when you're out there looking at that. And if you see any questions, then now you know. All right. Rule of thumb, we talked a little bit about management, get management support earlier. If there's an option for an answer on your exam, and one of the answers says throw training at it, ISC squared is a training certification consortium. So pick the answer that says training. So for instance, security awareness training. That seems to be the answer for everything. Now, whether or not we agree with that, I don't know. But at least you've done your due diligence by trying to detect any deficiencies that people may have with not knowing better to do things. And I know that for corporations, security awareness training is a big, big deal. How many of you guys have ever pirated software? Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. But usually, I know that you probably have installed Microsoft products before, and they'll have this end user license agreement, the EULA. Kind of sounds like an old aunt there, huh? Your old aunt EULA. Well, EULA here is the end user license agreement that tells you that if you don't have the express written consent of the National Football League, that you may be fined $250,000 if you copy the Microsoft Office or whatever software is out there. So keep that in mind whenever you're going through and looking at this stuff, because you more than likely will see something asking you about the EULA.